Awesome. Looks like we've got a couple of attendees filtering in. That's great. Hey guys, we're just doing some quick housekeeping items and waiting till the top of the hour, and then we'll go ahead and begin. I feel like we need some hold music or something.
Definitely something to liven it up. That's maybe what we should start planning, is having some really sweet music before the webinar.
I don't know if you guys have
name that tune.
I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Datto show. I'm not sure if you're using their products, but they always play some like really fun rock music in the beginning. Gets everyone all amped.
Mm-hmm.
Should maybe follow suit next time. Greetings, Anthony. Hey, how's it going?
We also never mind. All right. Going to be getting started in just a minute here. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Megan Augustine, and I'm the marketing manager at Microdoctor IT. We also have Mark Richmond, president of Microdoctor IT, on the call, and Danielle. She is from Huntress, and we're going to have some really good discussions about cybersecurity today.
Awesome, guys. Should we get started?
I think so. People can join in as they get in. So.
Cool. Love it. This webinar will be recorded too, guys. So, you know, if you arrive a couple of minutes late, I'm sure we can get you the recording as well. So welcome. So thanks for joining us here in this webinar today. So today we want to talk to you guys a little bit more about threat detection and response, how it works, what it is, how it fits into your security stack, and why it's so important. But first, we should probably introduce ourselves. So I'm Danielle. As Megan mentioned, I'm with Huntress. I'm a senior account executive there. I've been in the security space for 7 or 8 years now, focusing on cloud security. I'm personally based out of Orange County, California. We've also got Mark Richmond on the line here. Looks like he's wearing the same shirt as he is in his headshot. So how's that for synergy? I think that's pretty good. Mark, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and tell the audience a couple words about you.
Sure. Well, we have been in business for 31 years. We are an outsourced IT provider. We have been looking at the security landscape for the small and medium business, and we find that there's a big void there. Everybody thinks, oh, you know, Microdoctor's doing my computers. They're also, you know, taking care of these advanced threats, these new threats that are just emerging over the past few years. So now, you know, I've been going out and speaking to people about there are new threats out there, and there are new tools out there that address these threats, and we have to kind of evolve with the threat landscape, so to speak. So I think today is the start of a series that we're going to be doing on, you know, how do we address this? How do we address it for the small and medium business clients that we serve, and, you know, how it can help protect their business.
Love it, love it. And Huntress is just one of those layers, guys. You'll find that Next Level Cybersecurity, MicroDoctor IT, that they've put together a great security stack for you guys to take advantage of that will do just that, protect the devices for SMB customers. And I'll share with you guys today too. So today we want to talk about all of the different various layers of cybersecurity and the advantages and disadvantages of those layers. Each has their own unique kind of capabilities. Each has their own downsides. And then we can dive into the concept of threat detection and response, and we'll give you a good understanding of what it is and why it's important. And then you'll come to know why it's often the missing piece to your typical security strategy and what you can do to kind of fill that gap. And then finally, we'll discuss, Huntress's offerings and show you how we can help protect and detect. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So please, if you guys have any questions or comments, as the webinar goes on, drop them in chat and make sure you guys select, for all panelists and attendees to view. So that way we can see the chat, if there's any discussion that you guys want to have in chat, that's totally welcome. So we can address any questions that you guys drop in there, as we go towards the end. So let's set the stage here a little bit and talk about one of the cornerstones of cybersecurity. So what you're looking at here, this is the NIST Framework, and it outlines 5 key cybersecurity functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. They're all included here because they represent the 5 primary pillars for a successful and holistic security posture. If you guys haven't heard of the NIST framework, that's okay. It's set forth by the National Institute of Standards and Technology under the United States Commerce Department. So it's basically a cybersecurity framework that essentially sets a set of guidelines for private sector companies to follow to be better prepared in identifying, detecting, and responding to cyber attacks. So this is the framework, guys. This is the standards basically for, hey, how do we do this security thing and do it well? It also includes guidelines on how to prevent and recover from an attack as well. But the problem that many security strategies have is they stop here. Right? Focusing on just the tools that will help prevent threats from breaking in, but don't do anything once they do happen to break in. And that's really the challenge with this approach. So preventative security, it's absolutely necessary, but all tools have their limitations. And that's because of what they're designed to look for. As attacks evolve, threats, or fish in this case, right, in this analogy that we're using here on screen, they're finding ways to get through our preventative security nets. So even when you make the holes in your net smaller by layering on preventative tools like antivirus, like firewalls, like multi-factor authentication, you're shrinking the holes in that net, but the end result is that even though you guys are making the holes in that net smaller, an attacker, a bad actor, someone who wants to steal your information, right, will make smaller fish to get through those holes. And Mark, I wanted to kind of call on you here. Prevention is really key, and we know that not one product can really do it all. Do you want to give the folks on this webinar an idea on kind of on your approach to preventative security, maybe some of the layers that you guys have in place to keep your customers as safe as possible?
Yeah, I think the one thing is be able to recover. One thing that lets me sleep well at night is, that we're backing up and that we're having snapshots that can't be encrypted. So, we have that safety net, so to speak, of the backup. I can return us back to attack position, but it doesn't mean that you still want to be attacked. You still want to prevent those attacks from happening, because even getting back to those snapshots is going to be a loss of some time in the business. So it would be better to detect it early, get those footholds, and then, still be able to sleep at night because we know we're not going to go completely under. We have that, that great snapshot backup system that we can run.
Yep, having a plan in place for when those fish kind of sneak through is so important, because it will happen. It's an unfortunate reality of cybersecurity, but it will happen. And that's to no fault of anyone's. It's just the way that things go. It's because bad actors are always going to stay one step ahead of the good guys. And when I talk about bad actors in this presentation today, guys, if you're not familiar with the term, it just means the folks who run the malware. right? The cyber criminals, basically. Cyber criminals are bad actors. So if we think about it from this attacker's perspective, right, let's ask ourselves, if I'm a bad actor, how do I silently slip past my preventative security layers that I'm facing, like AV, like firewalls, and how do I stay hidden and trick the victim into giving me the credentials that I need or executing malicious code, right? And the answer is almost always social engineering. We've really seen this time and time and again. So attackers are using a phishing email to get end users to click on a link that they shouldn't be. And for those of you folks on the webinar who are not familiar with phishing, phishing is just basically a way to impersonate a legitimate website to get the information that you really need as a cyber criminal. So we're talking like credentials, usernames, passwords, banking information. There's all kinds of data that's valuable to a bad actor. And one of the ways in which kind of they approach getting that information is by tricking the end user, right, you, into clicking on a site that you shouldn't and giving up that information. So these have gotten a lot more sophisticated, over time because they really know what works to get past your preventative security tools. So for example, a phishing email might masquerade as something totally legitimate looking, right? Maybe it's log into your eBay account, right? And verify your credit card information. So let's say you click that link, right, on that eBay email. And let's say you're taken to a web page. Right. So do you think you guys would be able to spot the difference between something real and a malicious decoy? If you can, I'll show you a couple of examples here. Feel free to drop it in the chat. So from the victim's perspective, there's two screenshots here, right? One of a legitimate eBay website and one of a fake phishing attempt. Can you guys tell which is which? Anyone have any guesses? That's okay, because you know what? They're identical visually, right? They are absolutely identical here. Exactly, Anthony. Yes, look at the URL. That's a really key piece here. Make sure that Mark, you've taught him right. So if you make sure that the URL that you're clicking on, right, of the page that you're visiting, make sure it's a legitimate domain. That's step number one. You got to make sure you're going to ebay.com. Right? But they're pretty convincing, right? By the way, the one on the malicious one is the one on the right. Not that you would really have any idea of that from the screenshot. And then how about this one? So can you guys tell the difference between the fake credential harvester and the real website? Same thing. I mean, it's totally identical, right? It's a trick question. Sorry, I had to put a little trap in there. I mean, it's totally identical, right? When you look at just the screenshot of the site itself. So the one on the left is malicious. That's why including those detect and respond pieces is really so important. So for a long time, cybersecurity is really focused on mostly preventative measures, right? Only keeping out things that we know are bad. So think about this, right? Think about how you might, when times were normal, right? When the world was normal, how you might enter into a large event like a sports arena, right? Maybe if you're going to like a football game. There are turnstiles where staff are going to scan your ticket to let you in the building. But imagine you're trying to get in with an illegitimate ticket, right? You'd be prevented from entering the arena, right? If the staff scans your ticket, you're not able to get in, no go. You got to turn around and go home. So if you were a bad actor in this case, you might invest in ways to make your tickets pass off as legitimate. So we use tools like firewalls and AVs to scan the legitimacy of data before it enters your IT system in an effort to stop the bad guys before they gain access. But then the attacker's response is just getting past this blockade, right? And finding new and unique ways to get in, like disguising as legitimate applications or legitimate code. So that's where detection and response comes into play. And these two really go hand in hand. So let's go back to our sports analogy, right? So the bad actor wasn't able to present a convincing enough ticket to get past the staff at the door, right? But a really smart bad actor would find a way to hide in plain sight. Maybe it's by imitating a security guard, right? Once inside, there's going to be security guards that are scanning the space, watching for suspicious activity. But if they've got a uniform and a badge, how do we know? How do we determine that they're not a legitimate guard? So we're applying this methodology to our cybersecurity here. So we've found that attackers are constantly finding new ways to get around preventative security measures. We've got to find a way to root them out. And if we continue scanning your device, looking for suspicious behaviors, like maybe a file that's named correctly, but maybe it's acting inappropriately in ways that we normally don't see that file behave, we can monitor and we can decide if we need to respond to those bad actors before they're able to execute their malicious plan, which brings us to the response piece. So response involves finding a way to return your systems to normal. And this could be as simple as kicking out the attacker by removing the malicious software and then looking for any additional bad actors or actions that are involved that seem a little out of the ordinary. And what's important for us to remember is that we need prevention and detection and response in order to give us the best chance of finding attackers and preventing major damage. So the sooner that we can detect and appropriately identify that malicious behavior, the sooner that we can move into response and roll out a recovery plan that will help us return to normal. So how does this detection and response layer work, and why is it so important? So first, detection tools scan the device, and they basically keep a close eye on any suspicious or out of the ordinary activity. Then any suspicious behavior is flagged and then analyzed. This is a really critical piece that we'll get into more in just a moment. And then after a little bit of investigation, the end result is that you now have the right information needed to make necessary adjustments and remove those threats if necessary. So now let's hone in on this middle piece, right? So let's go back to our sports arena, our football game analogy. So just because someone appears suspicious doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually going to do something bad, right? I mean, it would be foolish, it'd be totally premature to kick out every security guard out of a football stadium just because one of them could have malintent, right? That's not a feasible strategy here. But how do we know if this security guard is indeed a legitimate protector? Right? How do we know that they won't perform malicious actions, being a seemingly credentialed and uniformed, seemingly trustworthy person? So the same can be said about the newest malware that's out there. So many of them are posing as legitimate pieces of software, things that you use every day, things that are totally normal, completely legitimate to use on the device, in order to evade our firewalls and AV and establish what we call persistence. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with persistence, let's define it, just in case you haven't heard that term before, because it becomes very, very important in the attack cycle. Before we can define what persistence is, though, we need to first talk about this framework, the MITRE ATT&CK framework, right? Because they probably have the best definition of persistence and its usage by hackers. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework, it's another matrix. It's another framework that would be able to identify tactics and techniques used by threat hunters and cyber defenders to better classify the attack, and assess an organization's risk, right? So this is another way that you guys can say, hey, are we doing the security thing right? So all in all, this framework helps to illustrate the typical actions that cyber attackers might take. And you can see all of these actions that are laid out here, right? There's tons of different techniques that they use when they're kind of putting together their attack. But for now, we're going to focus on this one, persistence. Okay, and MITRE has a pretty clear definition of what persistence is. It's essentially just the attacker or the adversary trying to maintain their foothold once they've slipped past those prevention layers and hide under their radar until it's time to strike. So persistence is used in order to maintain access to victims' systems in the event that that access is somehow trying to be cut off. So usually hackers will use legitimate code or legitimate applications to slip past things like AV, firewalls, and they'll use that to create their own secret pathway into a victim system, right? Persistence or a foothold. So the question is, how do we find these threats? How do we find this persistence, right? How do we find these footholds when software and automation can't find them on their own, when preventative security can't do the job? So we believe that the best answer to this question is threat ops, and that stands for threat operations. Essentially a human component, a human touch, right? We can see things with humans that automation, preventative security solutions just cannot necessarily see. So while many believe that automation is key, and it's definitely important, it's absolutely paramount in your security stack, there's an over-reliance in security on automation. And the human element is often the one that's overlooked because, of course, you're trying to scale, right? You're trying to deliver security at scale to as many folks as possible. And that's where threat ops really comes in, and that's where they shine. So the threat ops team is a team of experts who are investigating, they're researching, and reverse engineering the cyber threats that we face, basically, to try to figure out how it started and try to figure out more information about them. And this is really the key here. They analyze the behavior and contextual clues, right? Contextual clues is the key piece to inform how to respond. So basically, threat ops is able to provide that kind of human intuition or human intelligence that automation typically lacks, because context is key when it comes to detecting and responding to threats. Right? If I see that security guard in the arena that's, doing something that they shouldn't be doing, right? A dead giveaway, right? Doing something that normal security guards wouldn't do. I can tell that, right? I can be able to determine using my own human intelligence that, hey, a security guard doesn't usually perform those actions. And that's what our threat ops team does for your devices. So let me show you another example of why context is key. So take a look at this picture. So we've got, a great looking diving board. I don't know about you guys, but on a nice hot summer day, jumping into a pool sounds awesome right about now, being that we're in January. So it's a beautiful day. Let's jump off, let's take a dip. But what if I told you that, right below that diving board is a tank full of sharks? Right? Obviously doesn't sound so fun anymore, unless you're adventurous type. I don't know what you guys do on the weekends. Maybe you guys like to do the shark diving kind of thing. Who knows, right? But for me, I'm not jumping in that pool. So if we're able to zoom out, right, and look at the bigger picture, see the context around what you're looking at, it's all extremely helpful. And the critical piece here is context to detecting, hunting down, responding to threats. So let's look at an actual example of this in the wild. So what do you see here? It looks like a simple PDF for a trip itinerary, right? It sounds great. No red flags here, but if we zoom out a bit, this is really what we see. So the first thing we notice is that why is this file in a temp directory? So if you guys aren't familiar with the temp folder, that's okay. The temp folder is basically just used to store certain launch configurations and cache data for applications that are installed on the computer. A lot of applications can hold files in temp directories, but a PDF file being here is weird. It's a little off. This doesn't normally happen. And one that's about a trip itinerary, I don't know. This just seems a little bit off. Why would an application want to leverage a trip itinerary? So then that leads us to kind of questioning, is this even a PDF file, right? Think about it. When you look at a PDF file, don't you guys normally see like that little red Adobe icon, right, for PDF files? And that doesn't look anything like what we've got here. So it's a little fishy, right? So having the context is key. So a human who has a bit of security knowledge, right, like let's say like a security researcher, a member of a threat ops team, would be able to say, PDF files don't belong in temp directories. So analyzing the context and not trusting this PDF file at face value is a method that we can use to detect threats that won't be caught by your AV. It looks like a nurse shark should be safe. I love it. That's awesome, Anthony. That's cool. Okay, well, there you go. It's a nurse shark. Do you want to be the first one to jump in? I'm still not doing it. So, nothing might immediately stand out there. So, but let's take a look, and go a little deeper here. So first we might notice, hey, why is the file in this temp directory? I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, so that's what we just covered. So the file in the temp directory is not something that, is normally there. That PDF in the temp directory is not something that we would normally see. Got a little mismatch on my slides. So here's a recent example of the importance of human intelligence. So Thomas Bossert, he's a Homeland Security advisor to multiple administrations. He wrote an opinion piece for the New York Times, and in it he explains the sheer scale and significance of the threats that we're facing today. So I want to just highlight a couple of quotes in this next article. So he essentially calls attention to the need for cyber threat hunters to look for the hidden clues and red flags that bad actors have gotten really, really good at concealing. And it's these professionals that are so important because they're the ones who can detect and respond to these threats. Otherwise, this stuff is going to go unnoticed. And that's why advanced threat hunting is typically that missing piece, right? That's why a detection and response strategy will supplement, will augment a traditional cybersecurity strategy, which normally just includes prevention. So let's bring it all home. So back to our layers as it outlines in the NIST framework. So it's time to make sure that all of these bases are covered, right? We want to make sure that we're checking these boxes, not just the bare minimums of prevention and protection. So these are usually the pieces that most small businesses are missing. And this is what next level cybersecurity, right? MicroDoctor IT can help you with. So not only can we identify and protect you from the threats that we know are attacking your businesses, but we also have the people and the technology capable of detecting these threats that are constantly evolving. And that just means faster response times, faster recovery without major damage or interruptions. So beyond hunting just for persistent footholds, right? We've actually launched a platform that will help you detect this kind of stuff. And with that, I'd like to introduce the Huntress Platform. This is what we do here at Huntress. So if we detect with our human threat ops team that there is a malicious foothold on your device, we'll notify Mark and his team. We'll say, hey, we found this malware on this device. Here's what we normally see this malware doing. So be on the lookout for this type of behavior. We'll tell them exactly which devices were affected. We'll also show them what preventative security tools were present on this device. And that's not to knock any of these products. It's just to say preventative security is not 100% effective. As a matter of fact, in this real world example, this is a real ticket, guys. We saw Cisco Umbrella, Malwarebytes, Webroot, and Windows Defender on this device. This is a great security stack, but it's not enough to protect from those super sneaky bad actors who are able to manage to bypass these existing tools. And that's to no fault of preventative security. It just shows you bad actors are evolving, and they're evolving the methods that they use to sneak past these traditional defenses. And then we'll show them exactly how to go through and clean up this attack, or they can push a button and remediate your device in less than 60 seconds. And it's that simple. Right? So if we see that there's a foothold on that device, we will root it out and give your MSP the tools that they need in order to get rid of this infection as quickly as possible. Now, if you guys are using Huntress, you might have seen a threat report that looks like this, right? So this will show what we've done for you guys lately and what MicroDoctor IT has done for you guys lately, right? So this is the monthly checkup. This is the quarterly checkup. You guys can get this report emailed to you. Contact Mark if you guys would like to have this sent to you. But basically, this will show your name here. This is MicroDoctor IT. And then we'll show you over the last quarter, hey, in this environment of 11 computers, Huntress has looked at 5,400 changes, right? We've analyzed about 2,000 auto runs. That's one of the pieces of data that we collect. We had 8 manual investigations by our threat ops team, and then we had 3 incidents that we reported, right? 3 pieces of malware that we detected. So we filtered through all of this data, right, to ensure that your devices were protected. And that's the difference, guys, between saying, hey, you know, we think we're pretty clean, to saying, well, you know, we had a team in place, thanks to Mark, thanks to Huntress, who's able to say, we know that we're pretty clean because we looked for those footholds and we didn't find any, or we found 3 and we were able to remediate them as quickly as possible. And then we'll also show you what global threats were popular, right? These are all these kind of funny sounding malware names, CACBot, TrickBot, Dridex, right? These are the top 3 threats that we saw on the Huntress side. And then we'll also give you a little quick security tip, right? In this case, we found that there was a ransomware malware authoring campaign, and the bad actors were offering cash prizes of $15,000 for authoring ransomware related techniques. So in order to write malware, they had a contest, 15 grand prize. So pretty interesting. I mean, this is kind of some of the stuff that you see when you're exposed to the security research end. And that's not the only way that we can help. So we also have ransomware canaries. So what these do are, these are monitored files that Mark and his team would deploy to your device. and they detect for active encryption, so that if a bad actor does manage to sneak ransomware past your existing preventative security, we'll be able to detect it quickly. So if you guys happen to see one of these files on your devices, don't touch it, right? Don't touch this one. Don't rename it. Don't delete it. What these are here for is the purpose of detecting, hey, if there's a change that's made to this file, that change will get sent to our threat ops team, who will basically be able to determine if it's an active ransomware incident that's ongoing. So if that's the case, right, Mark and his team will be able to remediate that as quickly as possible for you guys and make sure that they stop that ransomware in its tracks from doing further damage. Now, if you guys want to scan this QR code, I believe you can actually do it right now on the presentation. So feel free to scan it. It will tell you a little bit more about what a ransomware canary does, and it'll give you guys a bit more information about, why we've decided to put these on your devices in order to detect for ransomware infections. And then external recon. So this is one of the other features that we offer with Huntress. If you guys are familiar with open RDP ports, that's really the biggie here that we're trying to detect, but there are plenty of other open ports that could leave you vulnerable. Let's imagine security like it's a house, right? Let's imagine the analogy of, okay, great. I've got antivirus, I've got firewall. Those are maybe the locks on my doors and the fence around my perimeter, right? But let's imagine, right, even though I put locks on my doors, obviously, and I've got a fence, let's imagine I left a window open. That's what OpenRDP does. That's to say, hey, if a burglar is present, they'll be able to hop in and steal the valuables. So if there's an OpenRDP port, that's actually the #1 way that ransomware spreads to SMB customers. There's a really easy way for bad actors to tell if an OpenRDP port on your network is in fact open, and then they'll use that to kind of pivot into their attack. And what we do is we give you access to that information here in Huntress too. So if a bad actor can see that information, we'll also be able to show you that information within the Huntress dashboard, so that Mark and his team can go through and make sure that everything is closed, locked, up to snuff, and the house is secure.
And this is my favorite new feature. I love this feature because it's really hard to know where people are going to be working nowadays. They're taking their laptops home, they're working at the office, we're not scanning external scans. This automatically scans. I look at this page at least once a week and take a look and see what's going on and make sure there's no threats going on my ports or can be closed, are closed. So I love this one.
Love it. And just to kind of to give you a stat, Mark, I may have reviewed this with you before, but there are, for the folks in the audience, so at Huntress, we've been keeping track of this information for quite some time. So if you rewind to last December, we had about 30,000 external IP addresses, roughly about 30,000 networks that we saw our Huntress agent was connecting out from. And that's what we kind of cross-reference, right? The external IP address, and use that to determine if there's an open port. So fast forward to March, right? March, when kind of everything changed, right? Everyone's working from home, nobody's at the office anymore. Everything is shut down. That number ballooned to 100,000 external IP addresses. So we went from about 30,000 external IPs to 100,000 external IP addresses that we were scanning with Huntress. Obviously, we've added some clients in the meantime, but there's no possible way to explain that ballooning except for, everything about life changing. So that's really one of the interesting things is that as the workforce moves to more work remotely, work from home type of environment, these types of things are going to become more and more important, because I'll tell you, the bad actors don't care. If it's your home network and they're connecting in through an open RDP, they can still pivot and they can still steal credentials and do whatever nefarious objective it is that they have. They can take care of it from your home network too.
Yeah, we came up with a remote worker security package, and it included Huntress in it, and that was very, very popular.
Nice. Cool, guys, and that's really all I've got today. You know, at this point, I'd love to open up. Mark, I don't know if you have any comments, questions. If anyone from the audience has any comments or questions for us today, happy to address those. Feel free to drop them in chat, or we've also got the Q&A feature as well.
We do have one special offer. It is that if somebody wants to try out Huntress on their network, we're offering a 21-day test. We'll put it on there. We'll run the reports. We'll send you what we found, and then if you decide you want to keep it, it's a very reasonably priced product that you can add on to any stack.
Oh, it looks like we've got another marine life expert, Megan. It looks like she also spotted that that's a nurse shark too. Maybe we'll have to go ahead and change that to something that looks a little more foreboding in that context.
Some shark pictures in my office here. We could use one of those. I'm a scuba diver, so we've actually done dives with sharks. We purposely tracked them to us. Most of them were reef sharks, but they were more afraid of the large grouper. There's giant Goliath groupers down there that have their teeth are just as bad than the sharks are.
Sheesh. That's one thing that's not on my bucket list.
Diving with sharks. Mine is, I don't think I really want to jump out of a plane, even if I have a parachute.
Yeah.
Not on my bucket list.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that.
All right, I don't see any questions popping up. Obviously, they know how to reach us at microdoctor.com. There's forms you can fill out to reach us. And now we have more scuba diving questions.
Will I still be protected if I scuba dive with my laptop? You know, I know that they've got that phone that you can pour a bottle of champagne on, but I don't know about scuba diving with your laptop.
Yeah,
quite there.
Got about 30 feet of pressure, so much it probably cracked the screen. All right, I think we should wrap it up.
Love it. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate the time from everyone today. And thanks so much, Mark and Megan, for putting this together for us.
All right. Thank you all.